to the February 2025 County Town Council public meeting. We have a really full agenda. I hope everyone has an agenda. Tam's giving it out if you don't have one, if you want one. As always is the case, we fly by the seat. We're ready to just on a dime. And we have a slight change to the schedule where two of our speakers are going to be the state legislative section on wildfire is going to be moved to 7. So 7 to 8 hour will be Senator Ben Allen and Assembly Member Jackie Irwin. And the first segment will be, we'll start with the roads, and then we'll go into our first responders and county updates. Okay? So that's the big change for the evening. Let's get started with Caltrans and SEE. But before we do, I would like to take a couple of minutes to go around the room and just quickly introduce yourself. You just say your name and your organizational affiliation if you have one. So we'll start with you.
Kathy Fiegel, Topanga resident.
Steve Hoyt, Topanga resident.
Frank Harper, Topanga resident.
Right here. Actually, you're from manager, Topanga resident.
Neil Shaw, Topanga resident.
Ethan Fines, Topanga resident.
Heather Adams, Topanga resident. Leslie Watts, Topanga resident.
Ryan Elliott, Topanga Canyon Fire Safe Council, and
Roger Pugliese, Topanga resident, 1982, town council, Topanga Association for Scenic Community, trash warrior.
John Abbott, Southern California.
Dennis Hannigan, Topanga resident.
Michael Mello, Topanga resident, Community Brigade.
Brent Whitworth, chairman of the Emergency Preparedness Foundation, and head up the community brigade.
Carrie Fair, Topanga Town Council.
Jessica Patrie, Topanga Town Council and resident.
Cody Sturgis, CHP.
Drew Smith, LA County Fire Assistant Fire Chief, and I'm your fire chief for there.
Yay. All right, Bruce Scott.
Scott Weinberg, Topanga resident, Topanga Safe on one side.
Dan Murphy, Topanga resident.
Marissa Capella, Topanga resident. Jane O'Brien, Topanga resident. Martha Alford, resident.
Will Alford, Topanga resident, Arson Watch, trash warrior.
Rowdy resident.
Liam Shores, Southern California resident.
James Dawson, resident, East
Susan Nesson, 48-year resident, Los Angeles, emergency management task force, etc.
Stacey Conway, Topanga resident.
Topanga resident. Matthew Harris, resident.
Kat Harris.
Horace Long, resident.
Charlie Colson, resident. Rosie Daggett, resident, RC Launch, and RCD, East.
Resident.
Drew Chaconi, resident. Ed Jones, resident.
Rachel Goldstein, resident. Benny Topanga resident. Dana Cates, resident.
Catherine Hernandez, resident, long time, 1956, proud mother and daughter of LA County Fire Chief Charles Crane, Italian chief in this area, and my daughter is LAFD now, firefighter and paramedic.
Chris Slocum, Topanga resident.
Crystal Lightheart, Topanga resident.
Mike Como, Caltrans.
Perfect. All right. So we have ended on who's beginning the meeting, and that would be you, Mike.
Thank you. I'll use the microphone if you would like, and if anybody tells me to turn it off, I will. I don't know how that works, but okay. Is that a vote? Okay, so tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Pacific Coast Highway is partially reopening. We're talking about the closed section from Carbon Beach Terrace in Malibu all the way to Chautauqua Entrada in Pacific Palisades. It's a partial reopening because it will be not for the general public. It is limited to emergency responders, essential workers like the crews, the utility crews, and others that are still doing repairs. I apologize for having to be a little waffly on this next point. I understand it's residents with passes, and Caltrans does not administer the pass program. Some of our other partners are doing the pass program, so I can't really answer questions about how the passes work. In addition, essential business employees with passes are also going to be allowed in. And if you have a question about what is exactly an essential business employee, I'm going to have to take your question and get back to you on that detail. Okay, so at 6 a.m. tomorrow, PCH is opening to those routes. It will still be only one lane in each direction. It will be an official work zone where traffic fines can be doubled at the discretion of the officer giving the ticket. 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, all traffic signals will be on red flashing. Any signals that are dark will have to be also treated as a four-way stop. So whether it's red flashing or not, every traffic signal is a four-way stop. This is going to involve a lot of delays. Anybody who's having to go through there needs to allow a lot of extra time for the commute, and we apologize for the terrible inconvenience. I understand. That's the situation, effective tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. on PCH. The current situation on Topanga Canyon Boulevard is that the mud that came down from the last storm is about 33,000 cubic yards, which is enough to fill more than 16 Olympic swimming pools. If we take it out on dump trucks, we're looking at about 2,400 dump truck loads. And for that reason, there's no estimate of exactly how long it's going to take to get Topanga Canyon Boulevard reopened, because so much can happen. One of the things that is happening is that a very large unstable boulder is going to be the subject of a rock scaling crew tomorrow and Friday. They will use these large airbag or mattresses that can be inflated to try to push it off down to the highway. And we hope when it hits the highway, it will break into pieces, which can be more easily broken up and removed. If it doesn't break up when it hits the roadway, we're going to use some explosive charges to break it into pieces. If that happens, that will be, if the explosive charges are used to break it into pieces on the roadway, that will happen on Saturday. We have to wait for Edison to de-energize a power line before our crew can begin tampering with it tomorrow. In case it does fall, it'll hit a line that is, I am informed that the line is still energized at this moment. But then there are other lines farther south where the Edison is going to, or actually I should say, whichever crew is doing the repairs will have to go in after we get the rock and some more of the mud removed, and they will have to do some more of the repairs they've been doing. Even though we don't have an estimate of when we'll be able to open at least one lane on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, the best guess right now is, speaking of the part south of the Grandview to PCH, it will probably reopen eventually, initially with only one lane and a flagging crew, because of the amount of work that's still going to have to be taking place there when at least a lane is opened.
When?
Yeah.
When?
When? We do not have an estimate. Because of the amount of mud that has to be removed and the fact that so many things can still happen, there's no estimate. If we gave an estimate, it would change. It's,
Do you have a worst case scenario possible estimate? 2 months, 3 months?
well, we are looking at a period of weeks to remove that much material. But you know, how many weeks does it take before we say, well, we're looking at months? It's a wiggly line there. And we're not trying to be evasive, it's just that there is so much material there. In addition, the material is being tested to make sure there's nothing toxic in it, because it's being removed to farmers who can use the soil. If we discover anything unacceptable in the mud, then it's going to have to be taken elsewhere, so that complicates the disposal.
Michael, because this is gonna basically, 20 people are gonna ask you the same question in some variety. We need a when, some sort of a when, even if it's an estimate. So I know you don't have right now an answer on that, but we're going to need an answer from somebody at Caltrans within a week. Okay, I need an answer as soon as possible. when your plan is based on what you're able to assess on the site.
So within a week, you would like an estimate of our best estimate at
Yes,
that time?
yes, something to work around, to plan around.
Okay,
I have a question. Why can't I get the?
Okay, hold on, before we go into we do have a whole list of people who asked to ask questions first, so I just wanted to chime in with a question everybody has. But I want to make sure you can finish SE and then we go into questions. Go ahead. You're done? Okay, hold on, wait, hold on. If you have a just Caltrans question, now is a good time for that, or we go to SE and then we do all the roads questions together. All right, just go ahead.
No, I want to put myself on the list. Thank you.
Okay, then next, let me just,
Kathleen Hernandez.
perfect, all right, can we put her on the list? Kathy Fiegel asked like 3 times, so she's first on the list.
Well, I just, I'm gonna try to make this quick as far as, feedback. We were here this time last year with the estimates of, it's gonna be 6 months. We have 50,000 trucks we have to get out. And when you all finally started working after 2.5 months, it took you 2.5 weeks. During that time, over 3 months, our daily commutes to the west side really elongated. So I gotta tell you, credibility is a little shaky for me, because I figure if you've been doing this job for a long time, you should be able to make better estimates. And, there's all places in this world and in this country where these sort of things happen, and they get in and they get the stuff clear. They get the roads clear. I feel like a tourniquet is put on Topanga. And if you don't release a tourniquet, you kill the limb that you're trying to save. My own personal, like after my first week of having to go, I work in Marina Del Rey, I teach. And after having to go, my options were I leave at 6 in the morning and I get to my job 3 hours before I have to teach. Or I leave at 7 and I spend over 3 hours. And I'm not in a good space to be teaching children by the time I get there. This is my story, and I know it's the story of a lot of people. I did go out, I've got an e-bike now, and when you opened up PCH, I drove to Malibu and I rode from there into work, because if I have to spend 1.5 hours to 2 hours, I'd rather get some exercise. But when I got down there with the 2 weeks where I was able to do that, then I get a message that it's closed and I got to get back to my truck. And this last time, what I was told was, oh, well, the sheriff's department is in charge of the southbound, because I did go. I went over to the Lost Hills station. I said, I'm here to get a pass. They said there are no passes being issued. And when I tried to come home, then they had, apparently I was being told by the National Guard, the sheriff's department is in charge of the southbound and the police, LAPD is in charge of the northbound. I'm like, are you kidding me? Can we be grown-ups? Can we all get on a Zoom? Can we have one policy? And I don't know why, if you're allowing Palisade residents and Malibu residents a pass, why can't Topanga residents get a pass? And it's, I agree with Carrie, you should be able to come up with better numbers. But I don't know how to implore upon, I don't know who's making the decisions. Who made the decision last year? Who's making these decisions? Because, you're just impacting people's daily lives. And I've ridden, riding my bike along PCH. You have 5 full lanes there. How can you not let your work crews and keep traffic going? And last week you shut it down 3 days before the heavy rain came in. Why? That's okay.
Very good. Well, there's a lot of questions in there. All right, go ahead and then answer that question. Then I think we need to get to SE, and then I'd like to open it up to questions. 30 seconds each question.
Sorry.
Caltrans does not administer the program related to passes. Our other partners, agency partners, including the county, the cities, the sheriff, the police departments, and all of that is coordinated, but I'm not part of the coordinating team, so I can't answer that question. The other question about There are unstable hills all along. PCH is uniquely susceptible to post-fire slide hazards because of the steep slopes all along PCH, which can come down days after a rainstorm stops. In addition, there are other factors like the sheer number of burned drainages upstream that feed into the canyons that drain onto PCH and other things like that. So we do not make these decisions lightly regarding public safety, but if we allowed the public to travel on PCH and a hill came down, well, that would be another tragedy. I will take any questions back to Caltrans to try to get a better estimate of what it will look like in about a week or so.
Awesome. Okay, so some people will be putting questions in the chat. In addition, if you guys want to talk to Michael sort of outside or over in the corner there, so we don't hear it, or if you want to write them down and give them to him to take back, because we're going to run out of time. All right, I want to introduce now, we have Leah Torres from SDE, and she's in charge of the undergrounding project.
I have a couple of updates. As you know, we've been on the north side of Topanga Canyon Boulevard for quite some time. We have set all of our structures. So we will no longer be setting any more vaults on the top of Topanga Canyon. We have about 1,000 feet left of trenching.
Leah, I don't think the mic is on.
Look at the bottom.
Not loud enough.
Can you
You
please
have to hold it
identify
closer to the
yourself
mic.
one more time, because it was fast.
My name is Leah Torres,
There you go.
and I'm a manager for Southern California Edison Targeted Underground Program. So we have set all of our structures on the north side of our Picasso circuit, which is Topanga Canyon Boulevard. And we have 1,000 feet left of trenching left to do. And that is from, I have to pull up the street names, but Happy Trail to Cafe 27. It's approximately 10 more days left of the trenching. So that is our civil work that we have left to complete in that section. And we will be completely done with the civil construction. We will then finish our electrical construction, which is happening at nighttime hours. So we have worked with Caltrans to get permitting for electrical work. And so that is in the evening hours, and it's minimal noise, which is the reason that we're doing the electrical work during that time. The civil work was suggested to be done at night. I know I've heard many suggestions for us to complete that work during night, but because the noise level is so loud, because of the civil work, we are unable to do that during nighttime hours. However, we have 10 days left of that construction, and then we'll be complete with that. We expect for our electrical construction to be completed by the end of March. And again, that's working in the nighttime hours. So it should be minimal interference to traffic at that time.
So the endpoint is Cafe 27?
Correct, for this portion of the work. So I do have some updates on the remaining projects that we have going on. Go ahead, Roger.
What you're referring to right now is section 1, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So section 1, we have a couple of different sections that we're calling different sections on our project, which goes from Woodland Crest all the way down to PCH. And the first section goes from Woodland Crest to Happy Trail. What we're calling section 3, kind of out of order, so apologies, but our section 3 goes from PCH, at the intersection at PCH and Topanga Canyon, up to the 1.8 mile marker. And right now we have actually, because of the fire restoration efforts, we decided to escalate that project and accelerate it to be completed while we're doing restoration on Topanga Canyon. I did receive word today that we are able to have access to that 1.8 miles, and we will begin potholing this week. We have to go out there. Unfortunately, the rain washed away all the markers that we had placed out there for our trenching and vault locations. So we have to go back out there and remark those areas, and then we will begin potholing and then trenching and setting vaults in those areas.
As a resident that has had over 60 shut-offs due to this work that you've done since COVID, not just the trenching, but prior, the coating of the wires, and a $500 Edison bill, where I used to have 105. I want to know how you legitimize what you're doing now. Why is it better than the coated wires that I was told were supposed to stop fire?
So I can answer that question. We've had fire scientists, I'll get to it in a minute. We've had fire scientists that go out in our areas and are highly severe, areas, our circuits, right? So they've tested those areas. Originally, covered conductor was the source of mitigating fire. After severe fires in our area, we've determined that there are more severe areas. And those areas have been targeted for undergrounding because that does reduce the fire mitigation in those areas. So in essence, this will also reduce the amount of PSPS shutoffs in your area as well.
So why are you giving that to us to cover with higher rates? My rates are at least double.
I suspect the rates are not in her purview. She's a project manager, but can you speak to rates?
No, I cannot.
Okay.
Well,
But that is a
great
good
to have
question.
somebody in the future.
We absolutely should. Let's put that in the list of things to ask. Or what, Drew Sciccione, are you?
Ciccone, right here.
No, very good. Okay, you asked in advance, so go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the shut off and others, but my HVAC won't work now after the shut off. And I'm told that that's kind of a common problem. And I don't know if anybody else has had this problem. My compressor is kaput. Now, in doing my research on it, I found that, yeah, that's a common thing. So did you put out any warnings to us about that problem?
That I don't know. I know that there's notices that go out regarding PSPS. I'm not quite sure. It might be something with your panel, which is, beyond the meter. I'm not quite sure.
No.
I'm not quite sure on that.
Rest
but
of it.
I can
I'm
can
gonna
you?
try to help.
Yes, please, John.
So PSPS, we try to give as much notice as possible, and as long as the wind doesn't just absurdly change drastically where they make a decision to turn it off like that, which has happened. We project what the winds are gonna be. If we're gonna get there, you kind of get a warning text or phone call if you signed up for it. And they'll text you and say, hey, we're anticipating possibly turning your power off in 4 hours because they anticipate the wind to be stronger.
That's not my issue. My issue is that I should have had some notice that if the power went off, my HVAC unit could fail.
Okay.
So
So-
I would be fine turning it off before a power shut up.
So what I would suggest to you is to go on the Edison website and go to the claims department and file a claim and explain that when they re-energize the lines, this piece of equipment no longer works. No guarantees, but there is a chance they will compensate you. But our claims department, unless it's changed, is you would have to make the repairs. If they approve the claim, you'd have to make the repairs, pay for it, submit the receipt, and then get reimbursed if it's approved.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a question in the back.
Hi, my name is Shelley Colson, and I live on Topanga Canyon Boulevard. And I'd like to first off ask, who may I contact and get questions answered?
Me?
Is your name David Ford?
No, but I know David.
It doesn't answer the question.
Well, it depends on the question.
Yeah,
I'd
that's
gladly answer the questions that I can. I have my business card and I will hand it out if you'd like to.
One more in the back after you're done.
All right, I noticed that sometimes you're doing construction on Sundays now. Is that gonna continue?
So we have 10 days left of the civil construction and they will be working, they're not working Sundays anymore. They're working Saturdays until 1 p.m.
And is that 10-day stretch going to Pine Tree Circle? Or
No,
is that
Topanga
just-
Canyon Boulevard.
Cafe
Cafe
27.
Cafe.
To Cafe 27, so that stretch goes all the way to Cafe 27.
can get clarification.
Okay, all right, clarification question.
I think what needs to be presented is the entire project, from what I understand, is in 3 sections. Section 1 is the section they're working on now. Section 2, you have to explain to me and everybody else where section 2 starts and ends. And then section 3 is the scenic highway area. So if we all understood what the borderline is for section 1, 2, and 3, that might help explain things a little bit better.
Okay, so section 1 is Woodland Crest to Happy Trail. Okay, section 2 would be from Happy Trail until the the bridge 1.8 mile marker.
You're not doing that now. It's more
Woodbridge.
That's a bit of a change, by the way.
Okay,
Okay,
With-
alright, well,
with
that's-
bridge.
that is what it is for now. Is it subject to change?
well, we're looking, so that section in between, and the reason why we did not work that is because it's currently still in design. And I'll have to get the specifics, I'll get the
You know,
specifics on the street name.
It's gonna be a screw.
I'll get
Do
the
you know
specifics.
approximately when that design is planned to be done, when we'll have more?
We're probably about 6 months out from that design. However, we're working and coordinating with Caltrans because of the repaving project. So even if our designs were created now, we're working with Caltrans to make sure that we are not in their way when they're doing the repaving.
But you're skipping.
And then if I can
Topanga School Road.
just finish the phase, so phase 3 or the section 3 is the PCH to 1.8 mile marker that we will be conducting now, and the project is slated to run about 3 to 4 months.
Okay, we have a question right here, and then we have a Zoom question, and then a couple more.
Might be a dumb question, but is this to bury the electrical wires?
That is correct.
And is it across Topanga Canyon Boulevard? And then I just heard section 1, 2, 3, but what about the rest of Topanga? When could we expect all of the wires to be completed?
That's a good question. I will tell you that as part of the fire, restoration, we've engaged our engineering teams to take a look at the feasibility within the city. However, that would require a ton of easements, and not quite sure that everyone would sign those easements and that it would be feasible for us to underground everything.
All right,
Carrie, one small question,
okay,
I just wanna know,
okay.
how does it mitigate? No, Topanga School Road, because parents are gonna be getting their kids from there, and they need to have a plan.
Okay, all right, no, I got you. It's a good question. I don't know, do you have an answer for that? Let's not spin our wheels.
Undergrounding on Topanga School Road?
When
No.
parents deliver their kids and pick them up.
That'd be section 2.
Yeah, we're not-
Yeah, it is like, which is 6
Have
months.
a plan, please.
Yes, that is a good point, very good point. All right, so we have a question from Zoom. A lot of people are asking this question on Zoom. Yes, please?
Question is, why can't the residents of Topanga Canyon be issued these passes to access PCH?
Or how can they? Like, we do access cards for Topanga Canyon Boulevard, but what about PCH? How do you recommend residents getting them?
I just got an email from my sergeant. Says, currently, beginning 6 a.m. tomorrow, the road, all the closures will be held. Pass center for the area will be Malibu City Hall and operate from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Any unforeseen changes. Citizens, contractors, essential workers, and everything in between will be vetted at Malibu City Hall. Generally, essential workers will be considered workplace jobs such as brick and mortar type businesses, caretakers, healthcare, grocery workers, babysitters, etc., on a case-by-case basis.
Did they
Right,
look at the document?
So the residents of Topanga Canyon, I know this for a fact because I was one of the residents who went and asked for a pass. Malibu City Hall said that no more Topanga residents will be issued passes.
It looks like it's only for, Malibu closure, Malibu residents.
It's Malibu residents and
Mhm.
Palisades residents, no Topanga residents, even though some of us Topanga residents reside right on the border of Malibu and Topanga.
Yeah, can we get that looked at, Deputy Baldy? I mean, that's like an official request in the entire community. We all want that looked at, so that Topangans who need to access it, or we can establish why. They can provide some sort of proof of why they need
Yeah,
that.
if it's gonna be, like I said, if it's gonna be like an essential worker, something like that, in the impacted area. So if you're trying to just pass through to go to Santa Monica, they're not gonna issue
Yeah,
it.
but Malibu.
You have to
what
work
issue
inside
that's to
Malibu.
us?
But what if your child
What if
needs to
your
go to
kids go to
school?
Yeah.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's not gonna be any pass-throughs, only if you're working in the area.
Who made the decision?
makes that
to
Yeah.
exclude
How
Topanga
do we
residents?
kill that?
That is a bigger decision beyond me, but I understand there's a
Can you get
possibility.
us the name, so we know who to contact?
So I know
Who's
the-
making that
The
decision?
main person that's making the roadway calls is, the head of Public Works, Mark Australia. They're the ones that are telling us to keep these closures in place.
All right, so then Mark and Lindsay. Lindsay she oversees Mark. She hires and fires the DPW. So
Horvath.
Lindsay Horvath, supervisor, and Mark Fistrell, go directly to them, and we'll make a plea as well.
Carrie, you got any,
Okay, we got a couple more questions. All right.
Wait,
right there?
piggybacks that question.
Yeah.
Will previously issued green passes be honored in this new opening?
No, from what it's a daily pass. Each day you're gonna have to go get a new pass.
A daily. No, you have to parents taking their kids to school. That is totally unreasonable. And we need to make sure that Tuna Canyon is open so that people can get to PCA.
Yeah, that is
in the first place.
So those two.
That is our request.
residents only as well.
What?
Tuna, was it Saddle Peak and Tuna and Stunt and Stunt Saddle Peak, I believe is staying closed.
So
Resident
they-
only.
They will look up your address.
Yeah.
Because I did get a pass based on where I live.
They will allow, Ryan's next,
They
sorry.
will
go ahead.
allow on Saddle Peak and the accumulated areas off of that Menard and those streets. You can, at Stunt and Shuren and Saddle Peak, Stunt is where the checkpoint is. For whatever reason, Public Works hasn't been paying any attention to Shuren, where the blockade should be. But they do have a checkpoint. And if you, in the past, if you know what contractors and adjusters and helpers and all those people that you need to come in, make those arrangements, and they will, at this checkpoint, you provide them with the person's home that you are going to and the service you're going for, and a phone number. Now, that keeps kind of fluctuating. If you have a truck with an American flag on it, you can way through. But if you then also want, you could come up, that's happening. If you also want, you can send your people up Fernwood to Tuna to Saddle Peak. And that way, they have the blockade where it should be at Tuna, and they don't have any blockade on Saddle Peak. So, as I said, a lot of those people up there have been having to go through this. It's been a very kind of illogical situation, but that's what they're having to do up there. So I hope.
Thank you, that was actually a great point. Okay, so we're 10 minutes over, we're basically down to the last 3 questions. Ryan?
Yeah,
James?
I had a quick question for
And you.
Caltrans, and that is, once they get done with phase 1 of the undergrounding, my understanding is that the repaving is going to begin directly after that and starting up from the valley side. Is that true?
I don't have any information about the time schedule for paving. I can get it if you would like it.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
because I heard that, I mean, I think one of the things that we're concerned about is the idea of the schedule being where the Caltrans wants to do its paving and Edison hasn't finished cutting trenches.
So I've been, I can give a small update on that. I meet with Caltrans every week, every Monday we meet. And so we're in lockstep with that. They're not going to be starting their project until we're done.
All right, so Ryan, James, Catherine?
So we've requested from SCE and have not yet gotten it. We've given them a plan for following. We have no idea when the roads are closed, when they're open. And we had requested, similar to what Caltrans does on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, they send out a weekly notice saying where they're working, what streets, what time, that sort of thing. Right now, we have no idea until you get on the road and find out you're in traffic that is actually happening. And so we have been requesting, could we please get notification in advance of where you're working and when you're working?
Good, great question. And we do have a website, a landing page that we update weekly. We were
And you push it
updating
out
it.
because that's impossible to find. Caltrans pushes it out every week.
I don't have a distribution list, but I can work with
She
you,
sent it
Carrie.
to us,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can push it, we can push out to them as well. Yeah.
And Caltrans, it just, I'll say,
Just
they'll
direct.
get there.
They push it out.
Yeah. they'll-
Yeah, so we update that on a weekly basis, and we have exactly what you're looking for.
All right, great. Will?
And I just, one more update on the boulder. I just wanted to mention that we did de-energize our lines today. So we're working with Caltrans on, getting that boulder out of the way and, no safety hazards as far as energized lines.
Once you finish phase 1, does that part get electrified? The poles are no longer in service?
No.
Or I don't, I'm just not quite sure what.
So once we underground those lines, the primary lines, so basically the top of the poles, where our energized lines, they're basically going underground, and we will cut those poles at the communication level, because those poles still need to remain for communication.
All right, great.
So thinking of the businesses in Topanga, we're gonna silo this conversation to Topanga Canyon Boulevard only. There's really only one way out for all of us and one way for the shoppers to get into the businesses, and that's at the valley side. You're completing that work in 10 days, so that thoroughfare will be open within 10 days. And you're gonna
Weather
move
permitting.
your work to phase 3, where we can't go through anyway.
Correct.
And you're gonna start work down there, so our businesses are not gonna be affected for a guesstimate time range. They're gonna have wide open road for shoppers.
We'll be done.
From the
We'll
north,
be done in 10 minutes. From the north, we'll be done.
We're gonna pave it then though, so that'll.
Well, not now, not now. Are you paving it now?
No,
We're not paving it.
right
Caltrans is paving it.
after section 1 is done.
No, I know, not you guys, Caltrans, Mike. Are you guys then coming in and paving that road so it will still be like a terrible situation for the businesses where they got one lane only and no lane at the bottom?
You're talking about the valley side?
I'm talking about where they're just finishing up.
Phase 1.
Yeah.
I'm not here to talk about the Caltrans schedule, but I can get any
Yeah.
information you want.
Get that. If they're going to immediately start repaving or when they're gonna start repaving that area. It would be good to have a break in the action to know when that's coming. Thank you, Mike. All right, so wait,
Sorry, Leah, is there any plan to underground the communication line, just leaving that light in place after all this work? Is that how-
yes.
There's a lot of talk about the joint trenching and so forth. However, a lot of the communication companies, don't have the same type of funding that Edison does to, underground those power lines. And in their individual conversations, we are in talks with, inviting them to underground with us. But it's a case by case basis.
Okay, all right, hold on, wait, one
I think
second.
it's important to know that undergrounding the electrical lines is fire hazard. And that also is part of the settlement for your firefighters. And that undergrounding the communications lines, while would be nice for scenic qualities, there are people who don't like the fact that then they would have to put those lines someplace else and consolidate them. But those are not electrical. If they blow down, they're not gonna start a fire.
Okay, all right, so we have time for one or two more questions. We're already over time. So whoever's dying to ask a question, ask it. Otherwise, give it to them
Just real
to.
quick.
Question for Caltrans, has there been a
Just a
geological?
30-second question.
The
Short
latest
call.
grades?
Yes,
Could you repeat the
Wait, one more time,
question?
Jessica.
question
All right,
is,
Jeffrey.
was a geological, thank you. Was a geological assessment made or a reassessment made following the most recent rains? And the answer to that is yes, because we have geotechnical engineers, the people who are trained in that field. They're every day nonstop on that section of Topanga Canyon Boulevard, because they're watching for anything that changes, and they're making a daily, even twice daily reassessment as they observe and patrol the area.
I had a quick question for you. Regarding communications, regarding the sign on the 101 and the silly sign in the middle of, after the town saying Topanga's closed. Who do I talk to about that can really change the wording on the signs? The 101 should say, no PCH access, town open. It says Topanga closed at Grandview. People coming in all day long, turning around, going up Grandview, going up to Tuna, seeing the National Guard coming down pissed off. And then in the middle of the town, there's a sign that says Topanga closed. So who do I talk to? I've been communicating to the PR person and someone above her, and no one's.
I think those might be Edison's. And I think we talked about that, Carrie. I think
The
about
one on the
changing.
101 is.
Okay, okay.
All right, wait.
Can you give me a name later? If someone.
Is there a consensus?
Yeah, we want better verbiage on the
Yeah,
sign.
during the slide,
Better,
it was done correctly.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
next
there is a
week's in
consensus. That verbiage is
Yeah.
what.
Can we
people-
follow up with you?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so we gotta give some Zoom. We've got like several people on Zoom who want to be able to participate. So let's do Zoom. Then one more to you, then we go to our first responders, who will be able to answer some of these questions. related questions, like with passes and things like that. Okay, Dorothy Reed, right, come Zoom.
Hi, sorry I couldn't be there in person, but my little doggy is here with me. I want to know why Saddle Peak, that little 3-mile stretch of road, is being quarantined. Why are we prisoners of Saddle Peak? Why can't we go in and out like everybody else? I'm told Department of Public Works has shut it down because they're doing work there. That is not true. I took Lindsay Horvath, deputy, up there to show him there's absolutely nothing being done by Public Works on Saddle Peak Road. Nada, nothing. Then I'm told that there's a landslide. There is no landslide on Saddle Peak. Then I'm told there's looters. There's no looters. Looters are not going to drive up to loot Saddle Peak. There's only one road where they might go down and loot it. If they're afraid of, on Swenson Road, then put a deputy at the top of Swenson Road. Our friends can't come and visit. My generator repairman couldn't come in today because he made the mistake of going to Stunt Road. What's the point of closing the Saddle Peak at Stunt Road when anybody can come up through Fernwood? This is absurd. What do they want from us? Why are they doing this to us? I don't want to come home from work every day and look at a Humvee.
All right, Dorothy, thank you. That was a great 30 seconds. Answer?
I can answer. I live on Saddle Peak. And they are doing work. I talk to them every day. They will let you in with a license. Go straight to the National Guard. And if you have workers, send them a letter that they can print out for me there. Dorothy, I'm sorry you haven't been able to get in, but we've had no trouble.
And this does seem like more of a DPW question than a Caltrans.
It is.
Or SE question.
It's-
But okay, yes, okay, follow up. We have a resident who wants to follow up to Dorothy's question.
So, first responder question, I guess. Thank you for everything you did with fire.
Good, we're kind of moving to the first responder section. So how about this is the segue into the first responder section?
Yeah, so where the hard closure is at Tuna Canyon and Saddle Peak, it might be a great idea to move that all the way down to where the one-way starts. Because right where it's at, there's residents that there's nothing to loot between there and the one-way. And so residents can get to their homes, their workers can go there. I know that there are residents that are having an extremely hard time getting anyone through there. Sometimes even the residents are having a hard time getting through there.
Yeah, so that is, it's not a hard closure, it's a residents only closure.
Sorry.
Yeah, and we are working on the orders of Public Works. They're the ones setting the closure areas, and we're just enacting them. We lost our power to make the decisions on that, a couple of years ago when the Board of Supervisors, took the emergency operations away from the Sheriff's Department, so. All the decisions on the roadways are being made by Department of Public Works or Caltrans, whoever owns that roadway. We're just there to enact what they believe needs to be closed. So we're only enacting what they believe they need to enact. We have no say on where it's at or anything. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and 9 out of 10 voted to reopen all the stuff, and one person from Caltrans said no. So we're still, Public Works, so we're kind of at the mercy of Public Works telling us where they want their roadblocks.
That's a big statement. So you're saying 9 out of 10 people who are overseeing this wanted it all reopened, and one holdout in DPW is saying no.
No.
This was before the rain,
Okay,
so
okay, got it.
something may have changed after that. But we did, our suggestion weeks ago was to reopen it, and they said the roads are still unsafe, so.
But I was
That's where it
told that
stands.
there's a collaborative, and the collaborative involves Department of Public Works, Caltrans.
Yeah, there's 10, I believe 10 agencies.
And agencies, and Public Works roads. Now, the reason that the people up there were given is that because they were blocking access to PCH. For those of you you don't know, once you get down to PCH and Tuna, that's Caltrans, and that's also the city of Malibu. And then if you take Shuren and go to Las Flores, you also end up doing that, but Shuren is a block. Saddle Peak is between Stunt and Tuna. So it's not part of that configuration of where you're trying to keep people off of PCH or out of dangerous areas where they were doing supposedly rain prep. So there's been a mix-up in communications to this collaborative. I understand that the sheriffs, because I was told several times, that the sheriff is under their rule. So someone needs to be able to get to Public Works and take them out there, boots on the ground, like Daniel did from the supervisor's office with Dorothy Wright, and boots on the ground, see what's going on up there, have a Public Works roads person there with them, and figure out something that works, that isn't keeping out, because it becomes very arbitrary. There are some adjusters, there are some contract people that get in, that don't get in.
Very good, Susan, I appreciate that. So how about we let Daniel, are we able to, let's let Daniel chime in from the county. Are we able to reopen this question or make this appeal to Public Works and Lindsay's office? Like, will this fall on deaf ears, or is it something we could move?
It would not fall on deaf ears, and I'm happy to make that appeal.
Fantastic. Okay, so can you connect with Daniel and Dorothy, follow up, connect that it's with Dorothy Wright, who is somebody who's well known. She's very well known, and we all love her dearly. But yeah, follow up with that, and then there's a community, like a big movement afoot to shift that. And if anyone would not like it shifted, acknowledge that as well, so that they're not getting pulled in multiple directions. All right, so I want to go ahead, we basically have like 10 minutes for our honored, courageous, brave, well-loved first responders. I want them to have a chance to talk about what they're dealing with right now.
You got one more question.
I got one question.
All right.
Is anyone here from Public Works?
That would be a good idea at this point, right? Yeah,
And I find that very disturbing.
Yeah.
Because they are, I talk to the sheriff's office all the time, and they always say, Public Works is who we're working for.
Daniel,
And
let's
you
get
gotta
Public
talk to
Works.
them.
Okay, on that note, so for the next meeting, we can bring in Public Works and answer all these questions. So if you have questions about non-state roads, all the county roads, especially if it's not TCP or PCH, it's a county road.
But you're gonna find, I'm sorry to interrupt, the Public Works is telling everybody that asks, and the sheriffs, is telling the sheriff that it's a collaborative. Which starts, because if you look at the National Guard that are down there, that's from the state.
Exactly,
So
right,
the
but they
state
would
is where it
seem to
starts.
have
Let
a
her
lot of
finish. Let her
say.
finish.
DPW.
Please.
Yeah.
Let her finish.
Okay, yeah, great, we are moving on, so Susan, if you want to finish your point.
I just want to say that the state is in control. All right?
Okay.
They
Great.
are telling Public Works, and Public Works is telling the sheriff.
So can we get clarity on that? Because basically this feels like everyone's pointing to somebody else. Who in your mind, you're the state, Caltrans, when it comes to the roads,
No.
who in your mind has control?
I know that somebody much higher than Caltrans
Yes.
sent the state National Guard
That's
here.
right. Yeah.
So it would be somebody who had the power to send the state guard here.
So are you saying that the National Guard is opining on the roads? and
No,
they-
I'm not.
Okay.
No,
So-
what I'm saying is the agency partners include, and this is not an exhaustive list, but as you've heard here, it includes Caltrans, which is just one state agency.
Right.
California Governor's Office of Emergency Services,
Yes.
county,
Right.
multiple county agencies, multiple city agencies for multiple cities, including local law enforcement. So they all get together. Now, who is the ultimate power there? That's above my pay grade.
Okay, fair enough. So Daniel, let this be your homework. Go to your supervisor and ask her who she thinks the person is who can make the decision on these county roads. Did you want, go ahead, Cody?
So there is a collaborative effort going on. There are high-level meetings taking place. I've been a part of a couple of them, but Caltrans and Public Works are working together on it. Initially, when they reopened it before that first rain, they reopened it for just a day. Public Works had expressed concerns about the hillsides and stuff like that. They met with Caltrans right then and there. I listened to them. They decided that they needed to close it for the rain days. And then they've been pretty frequently, they've been meeting together and they've been discussing the plan. Now, I didn't get in on that plan today. They had a discussion today, but they have been actively working on it.
So it depends on the issue, which particular agency maybe has primacy. It seems like with a lot of these road issues, DPW is kind of considered the big kahuna, but it may change depending on what the particular incident is.
So it's a mutual discussion. So they brought forth how they feel about it, and then I asked each agency how they feel about it. And then they come to a consensus, and the consensus was, they're reopening it tomorrow at 6. Now, as far as the passes, that's not something we deal with because we have nothing to do with the passes.
So Daniel, in your opinion, how would you address the issue of the passes and getting them maybe expanded to include parents of school children going in that direction, people who have to go to work? Who would we address that to? Yeah, Topanga residents who need that Malibu access.
I'm gonna have to defer that question for a transportation deputy, and I can check it before the morning.
So we need a clear plan for Topanga residents. How can we access PCH?
Yeah.
That's what we need.
It's
Whether
a huge
Caltrans
need.
or DPW, not here. We need a clear plan. How can Topangans get to PCH?
Yeah, it's a resounding question. So
And is that just gonna be access to Malibu on PCH? When the kids go down to the resort or past, Chautauqua to, they head into town? No, it's the whole thing. The whole thing.
It's not open yet.
So tomorrow morning is residents only, and as far as passes, it's only gonna be for essential workers that are going to work in the affected area. There's not gonna be any like pass through to Santa Monica, or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those
passes are day to day.
advisory sent out by Caltrans this afternoon, so if you haven't received it, it's available on Twitter through GSAT Town Council. I'm happy to pass it around if you want to know what is the announcement that came out today, the specifics of it.
Can I ask a quick question to the sheriff? What about if it's an emergency and you're up on Saddle Peak? Are you gonna be airlifted or are you gonna be taken to the nearest hospital? And how is that gonna work? Because that's something that.
Are you
could
talking about
happen.
if you're trying to like take yourself to the hospital?
No, we're talking about
I know that.
airlift. Go ahead,
Simon
Susan.
Keaton, Robin 69. I have a seat.
I can talk to that.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
Finally, I get one. Okay, so, we have, every day we have road challenges throughout the year. We are pre-planning what those routes are, so you're gonna get local law enforcement, you're gonna get your fire department, you're gonna get your ambulance in 365 days a year, unless there's a weather issue. We have the ability to airlift people to the right medical facility. So 69 Bravo was brought up. We also have Trippert Ranch that we use. We also use the top of Topanga, 69 Alphas it's called. And then if it happens that we need to travel somewhere down, we go to Topanga State Beach. So we have 4 points to airlift people because our primary mission is to get somebody to a trauma center within 60 minutes. It doesn't mean it's a trauma patient. We need to get the right medical facility.
Or a child pediatric as well.
Any of those that we need to. So your air operations for your air ambulance needs of the Los Angeles County Fire Department is not affected unless there's some challenge by something, but our air squads are, as everybody who's lived there, you see them flying over all the time. And one of them is located to keep an aircraft at Camp 8, which is just below 69 Bravo at Randall.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for our sheriff, CHP, or fire?
You're
I'd
getting
just
to a
like
whole
to say-
wildfire section.
Yeah, we're going to talk about, but this is our first responder. So there's wildfire policy, which is what we're talking about with our legislators, then there's our actual fire chief.
Are we on fire?
Go ahead. We're
Yeah, but she was
we
first.
segued to the wildfire policy section, but this is practical, pragmatic logistics.
All right, first of all, I know everybody's upset and anxious and anxiety, but I just wanted to thank all of you for a great job done.
Yeah.
How are we doing now with all the rain? I'm assuming fire risk pretty low right now. What's the outlook?
Yes, so let's talk about Mother Nature. Everybody sees that we have a post-burn area and we have now green up that you see from those new nice little shoots coming off the ground. So when the Palisades fire started, we were in a 5-inch deficit. And in January, that is usually what has happened is we get 5 inches of rain by the first part of January that promotes green up in those annual fuels, which significantly reduces our wildfire threat because we don't have a fine fuel component of dry fuel bed. That was significantly delayed, as we all know, because we communicated that message. We knew we were in an extended drought. So the right recipe to support large fire growth in January, which was unique in some cases, that fire frequency doesn't happen for large fire growth in January that often, unless you're in a deficit and we don't get 2 inches of rain. So when you have that potential for that receptive fuel bed when it's dry and windy, doesn't necessarily need to be hot, it needs to be dry and windy. You don't have that protective enter of that green up because of the new grass and annuals in Mother Nature watering the landscape, produces the right recipe to support that large fire growth. So to answer your question, our wildfire risk, if we have that green up, is significantly reduced. Can we get a fire? Every day it is, but in the absence of wind, we don't have large fire growth. And really in the winter or even spring or early summer.
Excellent. Okay, so we have 5 minutes worth of questions until our wildfire segment starts in 5 minutes. Okay, so we have 5 minutes of questions. You and then you, Kathleen, and then this fellow over here.
Thank you so much. And I just want to ditto what everybody said. We're all here in our best efforts. And so I'm not here to blame anybody. I'm here to make things better. I want to get the wet stuff on the red stuff. And Chief Drew knows what I mean. I have since 1980 a 1-inch water main since 1980. And I just found out that somebody in Highville, I live on Oakwood Drive, somebody in Highville has a 1-inch water main. So I want us to think about how we can work as a community, how we can work with Chief Drew, who already said he would work with me, to mitigate and look at where are our fire hydrants, what is the path from the fire hydrant to our homes. We have 6 houses and rentals on Oakwood Drive, South Oakwood Drive. At the Topanga bike shop or whatever outpost that he calls it now, on the southwest side, there is a dilapidated fire hydrant that was finally fixed. And there is a 1-inch water main that goes across my footbridge over Garapito Creek through my land over to Oakwood Drive. Everybody but me has low water pressure. I got this, which told me I have no water source, posted on that my house was not savable. Okay, and it felt, sorry for my language, like shit to get that after I worked so hard every year and I've gotten, great job from the firefighters that come through. How can we coordinate and know where our local hoses are? And they said they only have 3 hoses, I have 5. But it's Cal Fire coming in or whoever. But how can we think about, the picture I have is being in my daughter's fire truck at 61s in North Hollywood and her pulling out maps and looking at, where they're going to a fire. How can they know in a little neighborhood in Zone 6 on Oakwood Drive what's there and how to get that wet stuff to the red stuff? And that's what I'm willing to work on. And I hope other neighbors are, because I think all of us in our different neighborhoods have similar issues. And so let's try to figure that out together and really make a plan to do that so that we all know. And maybe that even takes some kind of fluorescent something where our hoses are. and the pathway to where that fire hose is, or where that fire hose has to go. Thank you.
Alright, great, alright. Do you have any other questions? Oh, yes, go ahead.
This is just a quick one from Caltrans. Is it Caltrans that'll eventually be handling the resurfacing of the road?
Yes.
Yeah.
If it's the resurfacing of Topanga Canyon Boulevard, the answer is yes.
Yeah, so my question is, the last time it was resurfaced, I think they used a form of asphalt that is not the super quiet asphalt. When you guys do it this time, can you use the really quiet asphalt?
They're gonna use rubberized asphalt.
Yeah, that's the plan. Very good question. We're on that from
Which
the
we've been
beginning.
talking
Okay, I just
about
wanted
for
to make
6
sure,
years.
because it wasn't last time.
Yeah, no, you're right, you're right. Very
Sorry, I
good.
forgot to say one important thing. The LA County Water Works has begun to think about and plan a water main to replace after 25 years. But it's not there yet. So how do we mitigate that meanwhile?
Very good question. You know what, Daniel, this is a county and a fire question. Sort of, what is the county plan? This would be a good question for DPW too at our next meeting, where we could bring in DPW and they can speak to some of these issues, like with the hydrants, the pressures, the tanks, like how that all is going to be upgraded for the next, you know, as soon as possible. Hold on, one second. Definitely want to talk, one second. That would be a good thing to bring in DPW to discuss, like what the plan is to upgrade some of the water mains and then how fire is informing them. But go ahead, Susan.
I believe I may have an answer to that. The place to begin is that there was a master plan created for the upgrade of Water District 29, which services both Malibu and Topanga. The rest of the world out there is Las Verdes Municipal Water District. Cities totally are not any of that. So the master plan has it all mapped out in terms of the upgrading of tanks, the storage facilities and all this and that. My sense is here on these kinds of details, Drew, is that that master plan may need to be revisited based upon some of the things that happened in terms of lessons learned in this fire and where things may need to be upgraded. So Water District 29 is the Department of Public Works, and I think that is potentially where that master plan needs to be, because it's on a schedule on what they're going to be doing state by state, and it's the whole service area. Water District 29 is the distributor, and that's all the infrastructure, and West Basin is the purveyor of the water.
So,
Thank you.
Susan, the only thing I would add to that is that it needs to come from there to each house in the neighborhood of where they're gonna run that water.
Well, that's what I'm saying. All the main.
Right, but the fire stations have to know, and like we know
Right.
here in this event, there were all kinds of, it wasn't the local fire station firefighters that were there, and they don't know.
It would be good to get a list.
Electronically, can we have something
A public
right now?
list, right, that would be good to ask that and to get more, but listen, quick update. Our senator, our state representatives are on, so we're gonna start that segment.
There was no blue watermark on that fire hydrant. They just painted it, anyway, they
It's
took
something we
care
look
of that.
into, for sure,
Yeah.
and it's also gonna come during the policy discussion.
During our fire inspections, I think that needs to be part of it.
But not everybody gets fire inspection.
So on that note, then with the
Actually,
markings,
fresh
Drew, what do you say to that? Like, our marking is going to be more closely followed or applied from here on?
So those are called bot dots, talking about the blue dots in the road system.
Right, there
So
was
it's
not-
marked, so at night that your firefighters can see that there's a water source there. So, do we get these blue bot dots? Yeah, but it's not, we don't install those, but we do install those because we ask them from the water district. So if we see that some that are not there, that we just install.
But we don't necessarily have a map from the blue dot to.
We
the
have water
neighborhood.
source maps, and so on fires, you talk about outside agencies coming.
Yeah.
No water source, it said.
Well, that can be subjective, just depends. Is there a hydrant there with a 2.5-inch outlet?
On the
approximately
highway.
On the highway?
My footbridge is 50 feet or more
Understood.
from the
So
highway.
there's that can be very subjective. So meaning that your home on a water source, do you have a pool with a 2.5-inch outlet? There's no water source that we can draft from your pool with an adductor. So meaning your house does not mean it's not savable. It means that you do not have a pool, you don't have a 2.5 inch outlet that's been pre-plumbed for us to use. So that's what that means. The municipal water system are marked, all of us have maps. Unless somebody buried, which happens out here with their trash cans, parked cars, and if we want to go around the horn on parked cars in front of hydrants,
Or,
we can have a field day with these two right here
or
in
Caltrans
this canyon.
clearing the
Well,
arena.
what I'm saying is, if it's a designated fire hydrant, and this is a very old water system based upon today's standards, a lot of the stuff wouldn't be going on what it is today. So in residential areas, the criteria is 600 feet between fire hydrants.
Okay,
So I'm raising a red flag on this, that's all, because I think we do need to work together
We
to
do.
figure it
Is
out.
there publicly available, or can we request a list for the public to review and sort of we can say,
Right.
oh, I found a fire hydrant, it's not on the list, why? And I think you're saying it has to be 2.5 inches, maybe yours isn't 2.5 inches?
There's standards for
1 inch
fire hydrants.
emergency
There's
water
also
line since 1980.
private hydrants, so if you have private property, have a tank, people can put a private water source for us to hook up.
Right.
In certain areas, they're called hanging hydrants. That's on your side of the meter. And then they're plumbed up, and that's something on the resident side of the meter that they have made available for us to use. So that is a luxury for us to use.
What are those called?
Hanging hydrant.
How do you spell
Sounds good, but we need grants.
Right.
Because some of us ain't got no money.
Right, right, there's that, but this would be something we could go into at a future meeting. I think people would like to know more information about it, but that's.
How can we register with you? We have a 1,500 gallon tank on Saddle Peak. It's not on your list. We have a 2.5 inch.
So he's gonna answer your question.
It needs to be marked, so we don't have,
Contact you, Mark.
well, that can be done by the homeowner, just like your building address. There is signs that are already made and available that people use, where it says fire department use only. Reason being that it is a private water source, that if you have a well,
Yes.
or you do rain collection that goes to a tank, or if it goes from a pool to a tank and gravity fed down below with a 2.5 inch outlet,
Yeah.
national standard hose thread, that we can connect to, that you are saying, hey, fire department, I have a pool and a body of water here that you can use. But there also comes some challenges with that. We have to be very mindful of what we do, especially people with livestock. We don't want to take all your water and you have animals there. You have a well that only delivers 15 gallons an hour, or you name it, there's a lot of challenges. But if there's a water source that we know, we identify, we will get to. We have a lot of tools that come to do that.
May I just make one comment?
Yes.
I live on Upper Hillside. Today, after I got back from being evacuated, Cal fire truck goes by. Of course, I had to stop and check. He was looking for all water sources on the street and was mapping them.
Yes.
There is an effort underway.
Good.
They were looking, well, we happen to have a couple of, a sign that says 9,000 tank. Well, the owners left and the person left them. But I'm from firsthand experience saying that Cal Fire is making an effort to get into neighborhoods to see what they can identify and amplify the information.
So one of the things we do when we give somebody a geographic area responsibility on a fire, and that's the division supervisor's job. They run a geographical area from point A to point B. Their job is to identify water sources. So when they have, let's just say, all the tanks and soldiers in that area, that they have pre-identified water sources, they're available that we can do. But there's also come some challenges as well with using private water sources, because some people, let me know if I'm wrong, that maybe have some aged tanks. What if we suck all the water out of that and flash your tank? They're gonna go, hey, it's cool. No, you're gonna file, we have to be, because we don't want to, when we repopulate, we don't wanna have damage to you, that now when we have, the ability for you to go back home, yeah, like can't now, because the fire department gradated my tank.
Okay,
A lot of challenge with water.
All right, you're gonna come up
This
again,
is a
Drew. You're
question.
gonna, wait, okay.
This is a question for the Topanga Emergency Management Task Force, because this was a project that we had once upon a time to find all the water sources in the community.
Thank you.
And we standardized them, and they have to meet certain requirements, like the chief just said, has to be certain fittings, can't suck everything out, blah, blah, blah. So we will revisit that again, but this is a project that's been talked about for quite some time. To standardize all this, and there's a pool draft, everybody has a standard, so when the fire department gets there, they know what to expect.
Right, thank you. So we can do a public records act request too to see what's being done. So we could just ask the information or we can do a full, an official CRA. But it seems like it will be forthcoming and we'll keep following
You wanna work
through.
for the residents?
Can I make a special
By the way,
request?
we have 15 minutes, no shower.
I'm just saying to inspect every fire hydrant, not all the, owners of,
Yeah.
but the actual fire hydrants and make sure they're functioning.
We'll discuss.
Mine is not, it's at 1273 North Topanga Canyon Boulevard.
Okay, great.
It was not, it
But-
finally got it after the fire.
Very good, and just keep following up, and this should be done. Okay, very good. All right, so we are now moving on to our featured segment of the evening, which is Future Ready, wildfire policy and legislation being introduced by our state legislators. That would be Senator Van Allen, District 24, and Assemblymember Jackie Irwin, District 42. So we're going to start with an overview of what they're seeing introduced and what they are introducing themselves. And then we will get questions and comments from residents about issues that they would like to see addressed or items they'd like to include in existing bills. Okay, so with that, we're going to start off with Senator Allen. Take it away, Ben.
Hey, everybody. So good to see everyone. It's been a wild time for everybody involved. So I just appreciate the council so much for operating and for convening everybody and providing for these great discussions. So there's been a lot of work, obviously, in the legislature on the bill side. I'll run through a few of the things that are happening on the Senate side. I know Jackie will talk about what's going on the Assembly side, and then talk about some of the recovery and cleanup efforts. The Senate announced a bill package associated with the wildfires just a week or two ago. My bill that's part of that package is the bill that we're doing with the county assessor to provide for property tax relief for victims of the fires. And so it's going to become a bit of a kind of the main vehicle associated with tax relief on our side. It includes both everything from nonprofits, which because now they're destroyed, nonprofit has to, you only get the special exemption or certain benefits under tax law if you as long as the property is being used for the purposes of your nonprofit status. And of course, if it's burned down, you aren't doing that. So we need to provide some more relief to them. We're also extending deadlines to rebuild a destroyed property in order to transfer the base tax year of the original home onto the rebuilt home. So that's one effort. There's also a bill that I'm doing with Senator Perez, who represents Altadena, to expand protections for homeowners and tenants and mobile home residents in the wake of emergencies, that would convene mortgage companies to provide temporary mortgage loan forbearance relief for homeowners and allow tenants to recover a portion of their paid rent if the tenancy agreement terminates due to wildfire. It also establishes temporary rent control for mobile homes in areas subject to the state of emergency, and builds on existing protections for mobile home owners' rights to return after the destruction of a mobile home park. It also extends court timelines for unlawful detainer cases in areas subject to a state of emergency. Also, I'm introducing a bill with the insurance commissioner to eliminate the list. This basically requires insurance commissioners to pay wildfire survivors 100% of their contents coverage without needing a detailed inventory list. For those of you who've gone through this before, you know that unfortunately you sit there having to relive the trauma of every single item, and it's so difficult to draw up a list. We're saying, look, if you've been paying for years for this coverage, you should just get the coverage. So that's a bill that I'm doing with the insurance commissioner. I've also reintroduced an extended producer responsibility bill for household hazardous waste, which will place the onus on producers for the responsible disposal of household hazardous waste products. It's an extended producer responsibility bill. that's now in print. We've got a bill that the pro tem, our president, is doing to basically extend the transitioning the seasonal firefighters at CAL FIRE to year-round permanent positions. There are also bills to speed up residential rebuilds following a state of emergency. There's one to create an insurance commission, insurance community hardening commission to create data-driven statewide minimum fire standards for mitigation. So a number of bills relating to that are part of the fire package, and you're going to see many more. On the budget side, we've been working to we have this one-time disaster relief fund for families and individuals unable to obtain assistance from any other funding streams like FEMA, and that's been proposed, and we're now going to have to fill in the blanks. I mean, no number has been proposed for this yet, but we're hoping to take a few more weeks to fully assess the need before proposing a set dollar figure. We're also making sure that all of those school districts that are in the area that are taking in all these extra kids, including Las Virgenes and LAUSD and Beverly Hills and Santa Monica, Manhattan Beach, that they will be made whole to ensure that that there won't be any disincentive associated with taking in all the kids who have been displaced by the fire. Similarly, there's a similar kind of promise being made to the community colleges as well. Now, on the recovery side, on cleanup, the EPA, as you know, is sort of taking the lead. The US EPA, they've significantly revamped their story map to better reflect the progress of cleanup activity. So you can go on and see how that's happening. There's some helpful photos. There's information about the staging locations, the status of each property visited so far, and that can be looked. You could search for by address or parcel number, and you basically just go to epa.gov/CA. / I think 2025 California wildfire, something like that. Maybe someone on my staff can put it up in the chat. Now, in terms of the staging areas, the photo tours on the APA story map they're very helpful to just understand the scope of the work conducted at the staging location and all the things that they're doing. I know there's a ton of controversy about this, and I've quite frankly been nervous. I've been pummeling them with questions. They keep looking me in the eye and saying that they've done this all over the country. And they really pride themselves on leaving the sites cleaner than when they got them. Of course, that's going to be up to all of us to hold them accountable to that. But they do have this story map that you can go online and you can see all the work that they're doing, to ensure that the material is being handled and transported and disposed of in a safe manner. Again, that doesn't mean that I'm happy with everything that's going on. It's just that it's up to all of us, including Jackie and me, very much to just keep on them in an aggressive way to make sure they're doing everything they need to do to keep the area safe. And as you know, after the EPA addresses the property, then it's designated as either complete, incomplete, or deferred to phase 2. If for whatever reason they can't access someone's property, then the parcel map that they have will update the property to red, and then it's marked as no access. And in that case, you then have to call them and let them on. I know most folks in Topanga didn't lose their homes, but I know 20 people did, 20 households did. So it's important to know all this because they're doing work in Topanga right now as well. Now, sorry? 48. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you for telling me that. I thought it was less. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So anyhow, the process, there's this whole process where you can opt in to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They have an ash and debris removal program, and hazardous materials will then be removed before the ash and debris removal starts at no cost to you. If you opt out, you can bring in a private contractor to do this work. They have to do it before the ash and debris removal. I will say, at least from everything I've seen so far, people seem happy with the Army Corps. And I personally have encouraged all my friends to just go with them. But you do have to submit this right of entry form for deferred property so that they have the right to go onto your property. And the Army Corps is on track. I think they're going to begin phase 2 work for residential properties within the week. And they've established this debris call center to help answer questions regarding phase 2 of debris removal. Their hotline number is 213-308-8305. 213-308-8305. And they've got operators available, I think, from 6 in the morning to 6:37 in the evening. So you can call that number if you have questions about their process. Another big area that we're all concerned about is air quality. We've been in touch with the South Coast Air Quality Management District for air quality testing this week. I'm actually working on a bill on this topic to create a special air quality, because one of the many things, 558 things have come up on the policy side that we need to now do as a result of what we've learned from this fire. One of them is that there's not an adequate kind of fast turnaround testing system to test for all of the types of particulate matter that relate to fires. It's one thing to know about regular air quality, NOx and SOx and all the rest, but there's a lot of fire-related damage to our air that was caused in the immediate aftermath of the fire. And some of the data that we've gotten is astounding. I mean, 2 days after the fire, the lead levels in the air in the Southland were 100 times over normal levels. Chlorine was 60 times over normal levels. So AQMD now is testing for a lot of those toxic compounds that the typical AQI doesn't measure for. So it's these kind of volatile organic compounds and heavy metals that are typically burned in a fire, particularly fires that that involve homes or buildings. They've published the data from mobile monitoring sites in the Palisades fire. Fortunately, these tests have showed background levels of heavy metals or VOCs. So and the rains have helped for sure. And the other thing is that other airborne pollutants that are not normally captured by AQI were also at safe levels. So we're feeling cautiously optimistic about where the air levels are now. Things are actually looking pretty good, which we're certainly happy about. Of course, we need to have continued rigorous testing. I mean, not just of our air, but also, of course, soil and water quality. These testing and remediation efforts were something that was funded through the $2.5 billion that the state pushed out to help the locals. This is our big wildfire relief package that we signed last month. But I know that Jackie and I have been working on this, along with Cal OES, which is the Office of Emergency Services, to make sure that, that FEMA and the federal folks are doing soil sampling to make sure that our soil is not left contaminated after the cleanup has been completed. On insurance, a major area, this is the last point, and then I'll close. Topanga was, of course, included in the insurance commissioner's moratorium of cancellations and non-renewals due to wildfire risk until January 7th of next year. And so that's a good thing that we have the insurance commissioner will be doing another event. We had a very successful event at Santa Monica College, and he was just sending me a note about it. It's gonna be at the Skirball. And it's coming up at the beginning of March. I'm just going to pull up the date. So I have it here. Let's see. It's going to be, March 8th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Skirball Center on March 8th. If you can schedule a free confidential appointment with the Department of Insurance experts. If you have any question relating to your insurance, including the FAIR plan, please make a point of going. I can't tell you the number of people, not everyone was 100% happy, but like 98% of the people I sent there were really happy with at least getting face-to-face with some insurance people to get their questions answered. I recommend making an appointment in advance. So if you are interested in going, you can call 800-927-4357, 800-927-4357. Once again, this is March 8th at the Skirball Center, at the 405 in Mulholland. So go check that out. So, one of the challenges, of course, we have with regards to mudslides, most policies don't typically cover debris flow or mudslides, but if they come as a direct result of wildfire, then they have a responsibility to cover in that case. So please don't let someone tell you otherwise. We're working with the Department of Insurance to make sure that the FAIR plan maintains its strong financial footing. We're very concerned about it, quite frankly. And we are coordinating right now with the FAIR plan to have a rep appear at hopefully the next town council meeting, so who can talk more specifically and get all your questions answered with regards to the FAIR plan. Again, you can also go to that insurance session at the Skirball on March 8th if you want to have individual questions answered. So lots of information, happy to take questions, but with that, I want to just pass it on to my great friend and partner in this very difficult process, Assemblymember Jackie Irwin.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, so we want to go ahead and get an overview from the Assembly side from Jackie Irwin, and then we'll go into questions, and then either one of you can take it. But Jackie, do you want to expand a little bit on what's happening on the Assembly side?
Yeah, I certainly will do that. But I have to say, Ben covered a lot of material and very fast, and I think he's given out every single phone number. So I'll tell you a little bit, obviously, this has been something we've been dealing with since January 7th. When I heard about the high winds, I got on the plane, came home, and as I was driving on the 118, saw the fire saw the smoke from the Palisades fire. And since that time, both Ben's office and Lindsay's office and Tracy's office, our staff has been working full-time, posting information, going to town halls. We have been at the Disaster Recovery Center, and really trying to make sure that we have been helping as many constituents as possible. And every day there's obviously new challenges. I think initially we were very concerned with evacuations and then repopulation. Right now, short-term people are looking for housing, and Ben and I are just trying to respond to the many issues that are coming up, and I hope tonight is much more of a conversation. I'll talk about a couple of legislative actions on our side. Obviously, as Ben mentioned, there have been a lot of bills introduced on the assembly side, bills on land banking, bills on mortgage forbearance. I'm a co-author on a bill that's trying to get a year of mortgage forbearance. I was also specifically requested $4 million in the budget to help with planning and inspection. So for LA City, especially for Malibu and for LA County, to hire additional inspectors, hire additional planners, so that when you are ready to rebuild, that you are not going to be held up at the city level. The bill that was addressing one of the very specific issues we saw with the evacuations is AB 469, which I did with Jesse Gabriel, and that strengthens the penalties for looting and impersonation of emergency personnel. I'm sure you've heard the stories about people that rented fire trucks, pretended they were firefighters, and were going into homes that were evacuated. We want to make sure that when the deputies tell you to leave, or when the firefighters tell you to leave, you feel that your home is safe. And the penalties we worked with the district attorney in LA, and so that bill was introduced, and hopefully it'll make people think twice about committing crimes when people are at their most vulnerable. We want to make sure that even during the rebuilding process, that your homes are safe. And I think that Ben covered it. Obviously, it was very important to get a staging site for EPA. A lot of people are not that happy with the site, but we looked at what they were doing. They were putting everything directly from collection into the barrels. The reason it is so important that EPA finish their work as quickly as possible is because we don't want that hazardous waste, the lithium batteries, the household hazardous waste on those properties washing into the ocean. So they had initially set a time frame of being done by February 24th. I think now it's pushed to the end of the month, but they are working very rapidly. Last week they had, I think it was 90 teams in the field. And for me, that is, it's really important to get those properties cleared as soon as possible so people can move on with their lives. After the Woolsey fire, I was able to pass a bill that allows you to rebuild up to 120% of the value of your home. So that is already current law. And I know the assessor is, they're grappling with some of the issues of what the base value is. But we want to make sure, especially if you are rebuilding a home in the same footprint, that you're going to have expedited processing and not have an increase in your property taxes. And then right now we're on phase 2. Starting phase 2, as Ben said, there's a lot of individual contractors that have now been permitted to remove waste, but the Army Corps seems to be doing a very good job. That debris from phase 2 has had all the hazardous waste removed from it. It's had the concrete removed. They are recycling the concrete. I think it's someplace in Sun Valley. Everything that's recyclable has been removed already. And our understanding is that they are testing it before they wet it down, wrap it up in plastic, wrap it up in material, and bring it to the landfills that are rated to accept that debris. And basically Calabasas and Simi, the ones that are in my area, have been accepting, have already accepted debris from Woolsey and Franklin. Right now, Simi is still accepting debris from Mountain Fire. So we assume that the debris coming from Palisades is the phase 2 has been certified as phase 2 by the Army Corps of Engineers. And that is what the landfills, both Sunshine and Calabasas and Simi are rated for. I do have to say the communication has not been good, and the community is very concerned. And so there's going to be a number of meetings with the Army Corps of Engineers to explain their process and how they ended up picking the landfills that they did. And again, so happy with my partner in the Senate. Like I said, our staffs have been working very well together. And then I really have to commend Drew and the entire Topanga community for all you have done to prepare yourself. This is a community that has been really looking forward at the potential that something like this could be happening, and has run drills. It's just extremely impressive, the amount of preparation that we see in Topanga, and I think that really helped you in the long run. So with that, I think we are ready to answer questions that we know the answers to. Otherwise, happy to find the answers if we don't.
All right, so we'll have Ryan go first, but quick first question to you and Ben. Can you guys put your volume up? We've maxed out the volume here, but some of the people in the back of the room can't hear you. So if you have the ability on your end to up your volume, that would be really helpful.
Oh, hi. I'm Ryan Ollier, co-president, Topanga Canyon Fire Safe Council. Jackie, we met at 69 Bravo, and Ben, I think we met in Westwood around election time. I wanted to make a case for what we think is really important, and that is home hardening. And that is just simply having people who are trained in what home hardening is, explain to homeowners what they need to do, normally around the first 5 feet of their house. We've been proven that really makes a big difference. And I really want to try and get the effort to get as many houses evaluated and hardened against wildfire. And that has everything to do with what's going to happen next time. And I would just make a case, and I'll be happy to contact your representatives, but I would be happy to make a case where if there is some kind of funding, where we can fund more people to evaluate the homes, and we can give the homeowners something to do the steps they need to take to harden their homes. That's a big thing, and I think that's going to make a big difference in the next 10 years.
So I've had folks to my house doing the inspection, and in between wind events, I cut down 8 trees and a whole bunch of branches from my pine trees, and we're covering up the gutters. The home hardening, when folks first go through the process, is very overwhelming. But what we have found is if you do a little bit at a time, and these Fire Safe Council volunteers are incredible. If you do a little bit of it at a time, it is very doable. Eventually, the insurance companies are not going to insure you if you don't do home hardening. So I think that's going to be really helpful. But if everybody kind of says every few months that you'll unfortunately cut down another tree or move a bush a little further from your house, I think it will be really helpful, because we can't rebuild in the same way. Palisades cannot be rebuilt in the same way. Topanga, that you have to really look at, when the next fire comes through, how are you going to strengthen your community? These fires were vertical. They were going home to home. There were attics that caught on fire. I'm sure Drew has said all this before I was on, but the attics caught on fire. You have to make sure.
What about funding? How are we going to fund it?
There is a bill right now, and there are grants that you can apply for, but there's a bill right now going through the legislature to give $10,000 grants for, toward new roofs. And so that's one of the, that is, one of the efforts. We have to see what happens with the state budget, but whether you have funding or not, there's a lot of things that you can do that are not as expensive. And again, it's going to be very difficult to get insurance if you don't start to work in that direction. But it is, yeah, it's expensive, and the state needs to step up with some funding.
Yeah,
The Resource Conservation District, Santa Monica Mountain offers these free.
Yes, the Resource Conservation District of Santa Monica Mountains does offer free home evaluations. So we have programs, and I know that Brent is also doing evaluations. So we got a lot of evaluations. We got a lot of people who would just love to do things. And I'm just asking you guys as the people with the money to think about what you can do, because I think it's going to make a huge difference. Obviously, we need to do it on a neighborhood basis. And anyway, that's what we're up to, and that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here, okay, Susan.
Hi, I just wanted to ask if you will be involved in the Blue Ribbon Committee that has been appointed by, I believe, Supervisor Horvath's office to build for the future, rebuild for the future. And the reason I'm asking that is that this is a critical issue in terms of home harming and creating a future where, from lessons learned and what we know, we can do to be able to sustain what's happening with our climate changes, which makes more frequent fires and more intense. So I would hope that there's representation there from your office and from Ben Allen's office, and some expertise that also from our communities that can bring in this issue and elevate it to the point that it isn't just a fact of cutting down trees. It's a fact of us taking responsibility and finding ways to make where what we're living in our space that we occupy more fire resistant, more flood resistant, so that we can keep these mountains and these trees that give clean air to the entire LA basin, have their place too. So in the emphasis that I'm hearing, and I don't know if you are too in this Blue Ribbon Committee, is that it's sort of an urban centric idea. And I would just hope that there could be, and want to know if there'll be representation also for the natural environment and how we steward and build back better for the future within the context of that natural environment. Thank you.
All right.
I'll just mention real quick. I don't think that my staff has been invited. I don't think Ben and I have been invited, but Lindsay is very quick to give us all the all the legislation she wants to do and the funding requirements. So we will definitely be involved, even if we're not on the task force. There's a lot of task forces that have been set up between the council members and the supervisors, and I'm sure we're going to be doing something at the state level also.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. And Jackie and Ben, have you guys checked your volume? Just checking one more time. Our desperation. Yeah, on your volume, on your. Perfect. All right.
Yeah, I think, is there a way for you to turn it up on your end?
I turned.
It did. Unfortunately, it doesn't go that high for whatever reason.
Okay, mine is at the top, so the max volume.
We can hear you. Just if everyone is silent, maybe it will help a little bit. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I have a question regarding hardening. I have barricade, which is a fire retardant that you.
Oh, it should be on.
Yeah, well, I'm
testing. 1, 2, 3.
No.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Look, I have a barricade which I purchased a few years ago. It cost me $550. It'll fireproof your house, or it's a fire retardant, and you spray it on just before the fire gets to you, and it will basically harden your house against catching on fire. And you spray the surrounding area and your house. Of course, then you got to wash it off when you come back, but it's a pretty good investment, I think. Do you have any information on that yourself?
No, I would love if Drew commented on that, because what we're still trying to find out is how did Caruso save his project? He apparently sprayed something on the
barricade.
No, just kidding. All right.
I know about barricade. And my comment on barricade is what we encourage people to do is do all of those steps first. All of the home hardening steps first, that's 8-inch mesh, that's 5 feet clear of vegetation around your house. All the stuff that get an evaluation, do that stuff first. If you're around to spray the barricade on your house, great. But a lot of times these fires happen when we're not here. We might even get a deal to get back. So we recommend that you do all the things, the home hardening that are already well-known. They're in the wildfire prepared home. I know there's an initiative in California for that. So do all those steps first and then sure. Yeah.
Very well. And then there's also environmental impact, so you don't want to go nuts. But if there's a fire is oncoming, it probably makes sense. All right, hold on, wait 1 second. We have a few people in the queue. All right. Oh, hey. Okay, next question.
Okay, thank you. Yes, on.
I didn't make this call. It feels like it. It's okay, just project.
Okay, here we go. This is more input rather than questions. I've just been trying to think on a macro level. You know, it's clear that the county and the state need to be a lot more aggressive in terms of fire hardening, not just homes, but on the large scale level. So bear with me. I've been trying to think out of the box. I don't know where else to bring these ideas. If someone can tell me where to bring them, happy to. But Jackie and Ben, I'm glad you're here. I'm just going to go through this. First, I just feel like the fire breaks that we have maybe need to be bigger. Instead of 15 to 20 feet, let's have them 30 to 40 feet. And I don't know if this is being done anywhere, but along those same fire breaks, what if we could put some kind of tall steel mesh ember blocking fencing that could prevent wildfire from spreading from one place to another? Okay, I know that the ember it is.
It's muted. Muted.
I realize embers.
Nobody's gonna go for that. You can't put a mesh around bark.
Around what?
A bark?
I know there would be resistance to it, but I'm trying to think out.
You're not gonna do it.
Okay, stop. May I please?
Just everybody, still support, but you can point it out.
Okay. I understand embers fly high. I don't know how high these would need to be, but what if they could block 80% of the embers instead of letting 100% through? So I understand there are wildlife issues. You could have holes in it every 400 feet. I know you're rolling your eyes. I'm trying to think outside of the box. All right.
It's good. It should be, guys, because this is a brainstorming session. Let's not shut him down.
Okay. Homelessness, I don't know, I don't know if this is the place to bring this up, but not long ago, there was a guy, he's still there camping above my house. He had a camping stove out at one point. I told him we can't have this here. I understand homelessness is not illegal and everyone needs a place to sleep. I get that. Should there be a carve out for the Santa Monica Mountains? I mean, at one point, this guy I saw him inviting someone else in with a flashlight. And so now there are 2 people camping back there. And it just seems like it increases the fire danger problem. So I know I'm not the first to bring up the homeless issue. If you're on next door to Topanga, people are talking about it all the time. My point is, maybe there needs to be a carve out for the Santa Monica Mountains. When you call the sheriff's department, they say, the person's not doing anything illegal. And I get that. But it's worrisome when people are camping out and maybe have a camping stove. And then the last thing, I guess, I'm not the first to say this, but I feel like power lines need to be undergrounded much more extensively than they are. PG&E had a $2.4 billion profit last year. The cost can be spread out over 20 years. It doesn't have to be paid for in 1 year. But that's, again, I feel like it's a no-brainer that this needs to be done.
Okay, great. All right, so then woman in the back.
Very quickly, I just want to bring up the fact that all of these are wonderful ideas, but do y'all understand that we don't have enough water in the Santa Monica Mountains? I'm a building permit expediter. There are many properties in Topanga that we cannot get building permits for because of lack of water availability. That is why Big Rock burned down, because they did not have the water. It's why TCH burned down, because they did not have enough water. Many of our communities in Topanga have very low water pressures. And if you came to me and said, I want to add 1,000 square feet to my house, I might tell you that you can't because there's not enough water availability in the Santa Monica Mountain areas. That is why Tuna Canyon and Saddle Peak and all those areas have not been grossly overdeveloped because we don't have water. And I don't know why that doesn't come up more.
All right, actually, on that note, on the water, and her and then you, but on the water, is that part of any of the bills you're working on, sort of mandating that there be more water tanks or water hydrant access and placement? How is that
Well,
expressed?
Yeah, I have a bill with Steve Bennett, and that to really address what was one of the main issues in Palisades, which was that the tanks were being emptied too quickly. There had not been that volume of water pulled out. So it's to require backup generation to make sure the tanks are full when there's going to be a high fire risk event coming up, and also to make sure that those tanks have backup power and sufficient backup power to really help the water be pumped out rapidly. That was what was happening the first. Drew could probably answer this better than me, but my understanding is the first day in Palisades, the tanks were being emptied out too quickly, and the pumps weren't able to fill them up quickly enough. So they were able to get additional power to fill the tanks quickly. But these, a lot of these water systems are not built for these wildfires. I think if this fire had been stopped more quickly, and if it hadn't been that windy, and we would have been able to get, and the firefighters would have been able to get air resources out there, I think it would be it would have been a different story.
What about the San Ynez Reservoir, which was empty? That's 177 million gallons of water.
Yeah.
That
was
by the Palisades. You missed talking about that.
Yeah, no, this is
I understand that, but I mean, if you're talking about the people running out of water, that's a perfect example of.
Yeah.
What about unrepaired water lines since 1980? I have since 1980 a 1-inch water main.
So for the most part, these are municipal things. However, at the state level, what are you guys doing at the state level? Is there anything you can do to create more funding for the county and municipal districts to improve their water infrastructure?
Yeah. So in addition to some of the things that Jackie just mentioned, I'm doing a bill on hydrant water theft. I'm also doing one on better climate planning, including making sure there's adequate water supplies when people are building into the very high fire risk zones. But in addition to that, I was the author of Prop 4, which is the big climate bond that we all passed on the ballot back in November. And the biggest portion of the bond is actually water resiliency. And there's portions of that are going to go toward trying to beef up our water infrastructure, including firefighting infrastructure in the Southland. So I'm also the chair of the subcommittee that oversees the state budget in this area. So it's going to be an area of real focus. I mean, a lot of it ultimately just about money. I mean, the story you just brought up, whoever it was, about the reservoir, it's an incredible story of maintenance of the M&O, like the maintenance and operation backlog. That was like $100,000 fix that they just didn't fix at DWP, and it sat there empty for a long time. A little crack that if they just spent the money to fix, they could have filled it up. And while it would not have, I mean, I thought some of the arguments are overblown about how much that would have saved everybody, but it certainly would have helped. There's no question it would have helped. So in the end of the day, it's about resources and just getting more money out to the water agencies to beef up the infrastructure. And it was part of why we really placed water infrastructure at the heart of the bond.
Okay. All right, great.
I just want to mention one thing. It's very fortunate that the bond passed, because I'm sure you have heard it, but we want to be really straight with you. The California state budget is in a terrible position this year. And we don't know how long that's going to continue, and we don't know with the federal government coming back how much that's going to affect the state budget. So we have a very long wish list from LA County, but it is really questionable that a lot of money is going to be going in that direction. I think the thing that really needs answering is, as Ben mentioned, that list of capital projects for DWP, I think, was out in 2012. And there should have been a steady progression to funding those projects. You know, this is a little bit like everything that happened on PCH. You know, a report in 2014 and with what needed to be done, and then none of it was done over the next 11 years. So we were able to get $4 million for that. I just don't know how much money is going to be in the state budget. So, but the climate bond that Ben authored does have money in it. And so, you know, I think we have to be very careful with how that is spent, and a lot of it should be allocated for water projects.
Good to know where we go. All right, Scott, go ahead.
Thank you. This is a comment and a question, just from having been in Topanga during the fires and seeing the incredible response, the coordination online with the agencies and our established organizations, with our established local orgs, and tons of volunteers that poured in. We're here in large numbers because we got lit up, and I've seen both, you know, the tremendously powerful impact on people from the loss and the trauma, but also this incredible surge of interest and concern to do the best we can next time. And so the laundry list of issues, suggestions, problems, and potential innovation is vast within this community. The concern and the desire to contribute to the process is massive within this community. And I can tell you that at the 10 community meetings and calls and Zooms and whatever I've been on, the 1.5 minutes per person, the one-line text in the Zoom is not doing it to be able to respond to the energy and concerns, or to tap the community's intelligence and energy.
Thank you.
So we're really talking about needing a more extensive process in these brief meetings where the community can gather and do community engagement in a best practice way that's done all over the world. And we love a budget so that we can bring our best to you in a way that's filtered, informed, and distilled through an extensive process, not a 1.5 hour meeting with 1 minute to speak into. There's just so much energy here that needs to be tapped into. Can we count on you for help so that we can have a budget? So it's not just a volunteer council that can manage a lot in this 1.5 hours and the prep for it, but that we have the time and the resources to do this right and be a model for Altadena and the Palisades.
Okay, fabulous, and I'll just say, I love it, everything he just said, that's great, but failing that, feel free to come back and give us your whole 2 hours, Jackie, your bed, we could just do a drill down with each one of you, so feel free, the door's always open. But go ahead, Spontaneous question.
It's a really cool idea. I mean, I know that the city, so I mean, that would largely be, you guys you're a town council in an unincorporated area, so that's largely a county responsibility. I would say if you look, the city of Los Angeles actually does give a modest but not insignificant budget to all the neighborhood councils around the city of LA. And that might be something for Lindsay to consider. I know she's got a rep there. Again, it could be like a one-time grant, for example, just for the purposes of planning. And then you guys could have committees that come up with a series of proposals that help to inform the process. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and I'll mention one other thing, and I'm sure many of you saw it in the newspaper. Nonprofits raised, I think it was over $650 million, and a lot of it has not been spent yet. I think some of it could potentially go out in grants, and coming, talking about this idea of having the community plan on how to deal with future fire events. There certainly could be. To me, it seems that would be a reasonable thing to fund for some of these nonprofits.
She comes for next venue, and then these two. Okay, sorry.
Hi, my name is Dana. I've lived in Topanga since 1991. I've lived here since 1991. I don't know if my question is for you or at what level, but years and years ago, we used to do controlled burns, and they were very, very successful. Yeah. I've been praying every time something happens, but I'd like to do more than just pray that it's going to work. And I don't know where to turn to see how this could be implemented. Do you have any ideas for me?
I would say that the person that has walked me through what a controlled burn would look like in the Santa Monica's is Drew. the chief. And so I think that he would be the better person to answer, but there is a lot of discussion in the legislature about the need for more controlled burns. The problem is often there's a lot of community opposition.
There are large, it is a much larger discussion, like it can't be answered in 5 minutes.
But it hasn't gone anywhere. It hasn't done anything. And
We used to do them in the state park,
yes,
and the people in the Palisades Highlands complained bitterly to their representatives, and state parks doesn't want to do it anyway, so they just stopped.
So let's ask Drew, on the notion of controlled burns, what is your plan or thought about?
Well,
Is it something you're
goes
doing?
on
Do
Facebook.
you want to have a community? What is your take on it?
Well, the take on managing the land. No, I don't. The take on managing the land, we have to work together and find the right fit, the right piece of open space. And if we want to go down a fire ecology route, we can be here all night if you want me to go down that route. However, if we need to manage those lands, we're not going to use chemicals. Everybody agree? Okay, well, now we have one agreement all night. Okay, so there's other ways. We know that we don't have the land mammals that were out here before we were all here. We know we don't have the Native Americans doing the prescribed fire for certain reason for their longevity and how they lived here. And then the other option is mechanical modification. Each one of those play a role, and there needs to be the right fit at the right time for the right landscape for the right purpose. What I can tell you though, is the more watershed that you have out there, the more control challenges we have because the energy release that comes out of the fuel bed. Case in point, everybody knows and saw that the Kenneth fire started, correct?
Right.
Everybody's familiar with that fire in the same footprint of the Woolsey. And if we did not have the Woolsey, that Kenneth fire would have went to the coast. It was in the same path that where the Woolsey fire started, except Woolsey started 8 miles back. So meaning that if you have an old growth vegetation fuel bed that hasn't had fire frequency in quite some time, those challenges, tactics and opportunities are difficult for us when it's windy and dry. I'll just stop with that.
Yeah, no, really good, and I think this would be, that was a really great.
That was a yes.
Yeah, like, are you like,
who is
like,
this?
potentially doing a community meeting on something of the nature fire ecology, like, is that something you'd be interested in doing?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, good, let's do that. All right, over here. 2 minutes.
That's my question.
Yeah.
May I make a suggestion that you all pay attention to when the next, which has been meeting for the last 20 years, 25 years, Topanga Emergency Management Task Force meets, which is mandated to meet quarterly by the Board of Supervisors. And may I ask that you maybe let us know when the action report on this fire, the Palisades fire, will be available, because the after action report, because the mandate for that is, and that's the group that developed in much the same way that you talked about and spent 2 years doing meetings and had subcommittees, and it's a co-government community organization, and we meet and we go and everybody's there. And when do you see that after action report showing up so that we can have the mandate to meet and review and lessons learned and what worked and what didn't work, which would include certain things like that?
Right now, I know that they're talking about whether you call it a post-incident analysis, an after-action review, so that is going into place. The time frame for that, I don't know. I know that there's a pretty extensive laundry list of components on 2 different levels for the fire started in LA City with some challenges within LA City in a lot of different areas. In the city, not just a fire department, a police department, or when it came into LA County, there's a different set of things that we need to look at. So how this after action review or post-incident analysis looks in a time frame to answer your question, I don't have a timeline on that, but I know that we are going to look at this just like we did after Woolsey,
Yes.
just like we did after Calabasas, just like we did after Old Topanga, just like we did after the Canaan fire of 78. I mean, every time we have a significant fire, we look at what went right, where we can improve, and how do we modify it? Because I give you something, does anybody know what year that they quit putting wood shake shingles on houses? And anybody give me the why?
Oakland 93.
Wildfires, hello, so there's corrective action get changed, right? So we need, those will all be looked at just like they were at Woolsey. And after Woolsey, there was a lot of best practice, and some of them were discussed in here, in this room. That
We
was
had
at
Gillette
Woolsey.
Ranch where we all met.
Yeah, they were.
So in 93, that is what, the 93 fire is actually what spurred the creation of TSEP, and then eventually the United Front created the Topanga Disaster Survival Plan. Would you think it's better to wait for that action report because it is massive, because you've got the city and everybody else involved, or and maybe have a preliminary meeting just to with the task force?
I think we know what the end result already is. So I think we need to come together and talk about what that vision needs to look like with a lot of smart people in the room that have this collective effort to come in with the end state and look at what avenues we can explore. At the end of the day, we want people to stay in their homes need to survive, but also they need to survive.
Right.
So what can we all do to come to that agreement on what does it need to look like?
And so I'm hearing that it would be maybe nice to go back to the co-chairs and find out if we could have an earlier meeting. And especially, I think on your point that things have changed and now you're recommending evacuate or shelter in place. And none of that information has really been put out to the community.
So, to the things that we've talked to within the community meetings on, hey, there's an evacuation order based upon time, there's an evacuation warning based upon more time, and there's a shelter in place, meaning no time.
Right.
That has been communicated. If anybody can really look at me and say, hey, I never knew there was those three things, then you have me coming to the meeting. We talked to it, we trained to it, we've done our Zoom meetings that we've had done physical evacuation drills, we've done them via Zoom, we've met at the school, we've done community center. So with that, we need to understand about evacuation. Thank you for bringing that up, Susan, that it is important.
So
People lost their lives on this fire because they didn't think it was important.
Okay, just weighing in just really quickly,
sorry.
just, there were already technically the
We're all gonna
library.
get locked in.
Yeah, like our cars are gonna get locked in, so we do need to wind it down, but I will say, like, if maybe there's time for one or two more questions. That said, though, I want to just quickly say, thank you so much, Senator Allen and Assemblyman Marshall.
Thank you, guys.
Number one comment is because there wasn't enough time, more people wanted to ask questions, so I do ask that if you could find time in your schedule to come back, we'd really appreciate it. And also, March 1st, Senator Allen and Assemblymember Irwin, check with your staff, we've been working with them on a fair plan meeting. So there's going to be one in Topanga where the fair plan reps are coming to do hands-on help for people who are having problems with the fair plan and all that, so.
Where will that be?
That will be here, right here, on March 1st, Saturday, March 1st. Right, one second, Roger, one second. One other thing, Sages are having a trauma meeting for people who were affected by the fires. The first meeting is gonna be in the Sages room up at the community house from 1 to 2:30 next Wednesday, the 26th, 1 to 2:30. So that is for people who had experienced trauma during the fires and are recovering.
What time is the meeting, March
One
1st?
to 2, oh, March 1st, it's 2 o'clock, 2 to 5. So that will be a lengthy meeting. So we'll actually have a 3-hour meeting just about fair plan. All your questions will be answered and then some. So good, all right, fabulous, all right, and last.
I have a quick question. I'm working with 12 homeowners who live near the Topanga State Park. And if any of you are aware, about 600 letters go out every year explaining that there are California codes saying you cannot go onto the park. You're supposed to clear, right, within 100 feet of your home. But the park, it's almost impossible to communicate with the state park to get an ROE, to go in and do fuel modification Our idea was to do a restoration with fuel modification in mind to try to get rid of all the weeds along Entrada Road. This is an entrance for 200 homes to get come and go from that whole post office tract. We've been waiting since last June. I have asked the deputies, the field deputies from Ben Allen's office and from Jackie Irwin's office for help. And I'm now going to work with Daniel to try to get that rolling again, because it's just unacceptable that the district supervisor of the Angeles district just does not communicate. They're too busy with other stuff. And we wanted to do fuel modification from Entrada Road, where that's where we thought the fire would come from, right? What do you know? It came from the other direction, but you probably know, sir. And the state park, the wildland, when we were talking about land management, we have to be really smart about it. We don't just, when you go up there and you see what they did after the fire, post-fire, just tore everything down, slash. It's so sad. It could have been done ahead of time. And the neighborhoods wanted to do it. It was so impossible to communicate with state parks. So we really want to ask you for some better communication.
Yeah, no, actually, thank you so much. That's so relevant here because there's so much state parks and conservancy land. Senator Allen, you had mentioned that, and I know Sam Liu was working, had convened a meeting with some of the state parks and conservancy. What is the outcome of that? Are they planning to do more brush clearance?
You know, Sam's on the call right now. I know, do you want to speak to this, Sam?
There was a lawsuit preventing them from doing clearance near private homes.
A lawsuit preventing them from?
Yeah, they were sued.
Well, on what grounds? What was the grounds of the lawsuit?
The grounds of the lawsuit was that it was a gift of funds to the homeowners near the park. And they stopped doing fuel modification.
Who filed the suit?
The California Taxpayers Association. They won the lawsuit 6 or 7 years ago. Every year, maybe longer. But it took everybody a while to notice, hey, gee, they don't do it anymore. Can we? And then we ask, and then, as I said, I've been waiting for 8 months.
Can someone unmute Sam, because he's not able to speak on the, you have to unmute him proactively.
Sam,
Muted.
Oh, there.
The same thing happened,
Let Sam talk.
at least 12 years ago. Having to do with the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, MRCA contiguous.
He's trying to talk.
Oh, Sam,
Okay.
Sam.
Okay, I was just gonna say that we'll invite state parks to come to your next Topanga Town Council meeting so they can address these issues directly.
Yeah, and Sam, I think Ben and I also wanted to have a conversation with MRCA and understand clearly.
Okay, my apologies to those who didn't get to speak, Daniel, but you have a lot of follow-up. A lot of the questions are coming your way. They need to be dealt with the DPW. So we do need to wind down, do we not, or can we? No. I have heard nothing about helping people that.
Can't hear. Gary.
I heard, no.
Hold it close to your mouth. Okay, and lift it up.
Okay, I've heard nothing about helping the commuters that work there. You know, they're driving 3 or 4 hours to come in. They're poor people. And I just want to say that also during that fire, they could not fly. It was windy. You cannot fly. We cannot depend on airdrops.
Yeah.
We cannot. I watched my neighbor's homes burn. I watched my friend's house burn to the ground, and he died in it. And anyways, I think that's what I'm going to say.
All right, thank you very much. All right, well, on that note, I guess we're gonna, oh, wait, hold on, wait, sorry. One last thing, sorry. There actually, there's the fire brigade fellow who came specially. It's very relevant. I want to make sure he has a chance to say something. Brent Woodward?
No, thank you. I think Drew addressed what I was going to talk about, which is the importance of fuel mitigation. You know, within Topanga, you should look at it. You actually have a second chance here. A lot of Topanga did not burn while the surrounding area did. And so it gives you a chance to learn from what happened outside of your perimeter and to have the right kind of meetings and to redo some things as far as home hardening, which we know works. As a matter of fact, in some of the areas where we did assessments of homes in the Palisade Fire, they're still standing there. The folks that actually cleared the 0 to 5 feet or beyond, those homes survived even without barricade on them or anything else. It works. The other thing on fuel modification, we haven't been up to, I'm speaking for Drew, Bravo 69, which is the helicopter base. It is a phenomenal place to look at to see you can keep the beauty of nature and still modify the fuels in a way so that the likelihood of severe burning just isn't there. And the last thing I'll tell you is when you look at the Palisades fire and it was moving up the coast, what stopped it? The thing that stopped it, in addition to the ocean, was really the burn scar from the Franklin fire, which was the month before. If that burn scar wasn't there, it was going to go to Point Magoo. It would not have stopped the fire. So we need to get really serious about modifications. From the brigade standpoint, I'm thrilled. I'm chairman of that group. I just want to tell you, we love working with you folks. We got a number of your folks who live here who work with us. I encourage you to take a look at our site. We want to get you more involved, and we're going to help you as much as we can. Thank you.
Okay, I need to go.
Did you want to say a final?
No, she is.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then the county is just gonna wrap it
Good
up.
night.
Can he just give his site?
Yeah, go ahead, give your site.
Yeah, you can go to communitybrigade.org. So just real simple, communitybrigade, one word, .org.
Yeah, sorry, communitybrigade.org. Go to that site. You can pull up all the information about us.
Great, and
Thank
then,
you.
thank you. And the county's just gonna give us the recovery update in 2 minutes.
Yes, Daniel Vicente, the new field deputy for Topanga. I'm gonna be covering your area along with my colleague Zachary Geitzik, who's helping with the town hall tonight. Sophia Sugani, who's the field deputy, Sophia Sugani John, who was our field deputy here before, is now our emergency management deputy. Topanga pretty much prepared her for that position, so thank you for that. She got a lot of experience in emergency preparedness. Price gouging, motion passed the board, maximum fine for that is now up to $50,000, to report price gouging. You can report that to the DCBA, the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. Their phone number is 800-593-8222, 800-593-8222. Fire-related eviction protections passed the board this week. That is going to be countywide, which means it's in LA City as well, due to some of the, I won't delve into it, like how we were allowed to do that, but we were, and we did. Relief payments for non-payment to property owners, 6 months, 6-month protection period. ROEs are going out. You can find those at recovery.lacounty.gov. Phase 2 debris removal. The first house to receive phase 2 was actually done today or yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is handling that. Again, you can find all the information for that recovery.lacounty.gov. A real important one here, we're doing weekly town halls right now on Wednesday nights from 6 to 8. We actually had one tonight that was revolving around landfills and questions about that. You can find and stream all of those on our YouTube page at supervisorlindsayp.horvath. Those are all on YouTube, and you can find all of the sign up information on our social media pages at Lindsay P. Horvath. We will be having our next town hall is going to be over Zoom as well. However, because it is relating to services for fire impacted older adults, we are actually going to be having a remote viewing, I guess you can say party, whatever. It's going to be right here in this room next week, Wednesday at 6 p.m. I will be here to provide right of entry forms to folks, help anyone fill out forms that they need assistance with. And I'm trying to see what else I have here. That's pretty much all I have right now. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to let me know.
Thank you. And I'll be following up with you tomorrow about all the road type questions. We'll probably need to get some DPW folks here next time.
Yeah.
Hey, Carrie, if I could just chime in too, is that we are also a resource for home hardening. It's called npcfsc.org. And at that site, you can also learn a little about home hardening, npcfsc.org.
You know, Topanga Canyon Fire.
That would be us. Yes, that would be us.
Yeah.
And we've been in the canyon since 2010. Like Brent, we also offer through the Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains home hardening. So I assume, I really want people to do that. It's free. They can shove video shelves. We're going with KTLA on Friday. We are going to do a TV report about it. And so we're trying to get as much consciousness as we can. So Brent, us, get your home evaluated, please, and harden it.
Oh, and last thing, Supervisor loves seeing everyone at the event on Saturday.
And we love seeing her.
Yeah, she's great.
Thank you everybody for coming. I want to say,
One last thing, in light of community engagement, Diane Portia just took this and started running with it. February 27th, we're already scheduled at the Mountain Mermaid, bringing leadership together to talk about solutions, what worked and what didn't, and how we can engage the process and really do better next time. So if you want to be involved in that, come to me and I'll get you on the list.
awesome. All right, great. All right, thank you everyone for coming. Meeting is adjourned. I'm sorry to get down the question. These are all ongoing issues. Just a big question, and we'll get you.